Hey, welcome. It's Wednesday, February 10th. I am Zach Seward, and I am joined by my co-hosts here on The Hash, where we talk about the latest in crypto news. Who are we looking at here? Who we got here? We got Naomi Brockwell. We got Ben Powers. We got Jen Sanasi. Give me a wave. We got Will Foxley. Hey, guys. You guys ready to do this? How you feeling today?
Feeling great.
Let's do it.
A3. Okay. It's just like that's the way I see it. So I'm just gonna kick it to Naomi. We're gonna
No,
go.
I feel like it means something else.
We'll
So
get you.
I'm going to be talking about Elon, right, guys? Let's dig into this, okay? Because he
When not talking
has
about
just
Elon.
gone so. Yeah, when are we not talking about Elon? He's gone so 100% into the crypto world. This has been a fascinating journey to watch, right? He's just dug right in. I think that it was yesterday he tweeted out, "Who let the Doge out?" And everyone's like, "This is fun." And so Freewallet responded and said, "We agree," and then tweeted about their app. And Elon's response was, "Your app sucks. Any crypto wallet won't give you your private keys, should be avoided at all costs." And it was like the biggest, most epic burn that I have seen in a long time. So what are your thoughts on this, guys? I mean, it brings up this whole debate about, not your keys, not your coins. It's an important discussion to have, but it was a very harsh way of putting it.
I'm just going to jump in there really quick.
Go for it.
This is just too good. This is exactly what crypto Twitter is all about. Just like destroying someone. You put up for a high five and they just punch you in the stomach instead. That is exactly what crypto Twitter is about. So I love Elon's obviously been in this space for a while. He's been watching it and he was just waiting for some stupid entrepreneur, I'm sorry, just to kind of like lob up a little toss. And he just came in there with Matumbo and blocked it out of the stands. So I'm a huge fan of it. It's pretty hilarious. It would be a bummer to be on that Freewallet team. That would be really bad.
Yeah, I'd hate to be them right now.
Social media team. I think it's great. I mean, we've been talking about this mass adoption and the fact that people like Elon are tweeting about things like this all the time is awesome. But the fact that he's bringing up the private keys and, encouraging people to learn more about what a private key is and what it means is great.
Is that what he's doing, though? I feel like...
I mean, I think it's like happening on the side. He's probably not doing it,
Yeah, I mean, this is Twitter, right? And, people aren't on Twitter to learn things, but, just saying your app sucks and then not talking about what private keys are and also not talking about some of the vulnerabilities with, like, browser-based wallets and apps and hot and cold wallets, like... I just wonder if, he's speaking to the converted already here in terms of it, where everybody's like, yeah. And the people who are just coming into the space are like, what? Like, bad app? I don't understand.
That's what we're here for. Let's tell
It's
you.
true. It's true. Elon pushed the content our way.
It's an important lesson, right? Because it's crazy that, I mean, sure, even if an app manages your coins or whatever, that's fine. But if they don't allow you to extract your own private key, I mean, people should be aware of those risks. I think those risks far outweigh any risks to do with like hot versus cold wallets or like you literally can't access your funds. And I mean, there have been, talk about some wallets that do that being shady and end up running away with funds. I'm not saying that about this one. I actually don't know the details of that, but I think it is something people should be aware of. And if Elon is using his platform to educate people, and if that encourages them to then look up or watch the hash so they understand what private keys are, then I think that's good.
So isn't this also
true.
like, I think that it's an indirect swipe at PayPal, right? Which Elon famously so PayPal, PayPal made waves in a major way last year when it announced that it would let its customers buy Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. But that's a perfect example, right? You're buying sort of crypto light. You don't have the keys. You can't send that crypto outside of that PayPal walled garden. It lives in that walled garden until it is redeemed for fiat, and then you have access to it. So stepping back and talking about what this means for new entrants to the space, that's sort of at issue. I think everyone here is familiar with, the meme, not your keys, not your coins.
Can you explain that meme just for anyone that doesn't know?
Yeah, so it's this, the Bitcoin self-custodial ethos, right? If rooted in a long history of exchange hacks and other exploits and shenanigans, if you entrusted the keys to your Bitcoin to a third party, you deserved it when you got wrecked. So that's sort of the root of the meme. And I think what we're seeing here is like kind of what Ben was saying. I like the shout out to like he's sort of preaching to the converted. And sort of hearkening back to that meme after his many months like lurking in the cut of crypto Twitter and absorbing as much troll juice as possible to then send out into the world, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, I think that's the conversation that I hope people then have. They say, oh, okay, I did buy Bitcoin in PayPal, but I get it now. I can't really do anything. And I lose a lot of the advantages of censorship resistance and other features of Bitcoin should I keep my cryptocurrency in an app like that. So I think that is the broader conversation. But I don't know, Naomi, have you seen the broader conversation occurring, or is it mostly just haha, that was funny?
It's mostly just haha. It's mostly just trolls. I mean, you're right. He kind of like went full super saiyan. Like he just sent out so much troll juice in that one tweet. It was incredible. But, I like that he's getting the conversation started. I hope the conversation continues. It didn't occur to me that it was a jab at PayPal, and their restrictions are even more restrictive than just not having your private key. The fact that you can't even use it at all. You can't use it to pay for anything. You can't send it to another wallet. You can't send it to an outside wallet. It's like, is it really Bitcoin? Like, does the Bitcoin actually exist? We have no way of knowing because it can't actually be taken out of this walled garden, as you said. So, I think we're going to see more and more people entering the space through means like that. And I'm all for it. I think it's great that PayPal is letting people enter this space in an easy way. We're going to get more people entering that way, though, who don't understand why crypto is important. So it's up to us to continue the conversation. And I thank Elon for, really jumpstarting that conversation in his tweet. Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
So there is real Bitcoin chops behind the PayPal offering, just for the record. It's powered by Paxos and Itbit. There's the exchange that sort of, gets the actual Bitcoin so that it's represented on the PayPal, on the PayPal balance sheet, like as to who's buying what and when. So there is actual Bitcoin on the back end, but, as it stands now, it's extremely custodial from PayPal and other services as well. Will, I saw your hand go up. What's up?
Yeah, just to Naomi's point, arguably PayPal has actually made Bitcoin a better store of value because you can't take it off. The only reason you can have it is to buy or sell. So maybe they just actually improve Bitcoin by taking away some key features. I don't know. That might not be popular.
Improves Bitcoin. Internet hates on Will.
Cool. So staying in the realm of social media, Ben, the other major social media Bitcoin titan, Jack Dorsey, he did something, didn't he?
Yeah, speaking of Twitter, in some ways, on an investor call yesterday, per a report from The Verge, Jack got a bit into Blue Sky, which is a decentralized version of Twitter that Twitter's been working on for a few years now. And something I thought was really interesting about it is he mentioned having a marketplace for social media ranking algorithms. So, an algorithm shows you what you're fed in every social media platform. But it seemed like he was talking about the idea of users could choose their own algorithms in a sort of app store-like environment in Blue Sky. I just thought it was really interesting. It's an idea I hadn't necessarily thought about, but I'm curious to hear other people's thoughts. Would this be a good thing, a bad thing? Would it just give users more control? And is that what we all kind of want?
I completely missed the memo that Twitter was working on a decentralized platform. I missed that whole conversation. And you said earlier, they only mentioned it very briefly, like ages, like over a year ago. I would have thought that would be good news. Yeah, especially since he went on this big thing about, we censor people on Twitter, but ultimately Bitcoin is great because it's uncensorable. You would have thought that he would have used that opportunity to actually plug Blue Sky, plug this decentralized Twitter that they're building rather than plug Bitcoin. I mean, it seems strange that we're just not hearing much about this.
I mean, to be fair, Twitter's been in the news for a lot of reasons around content moderation and stuff like that. So possibly they had bigger fires to put out over the last few years. But it's true. I mean, TechCrunch, I believe last month had the first kind of deep dive into Blue Sky and just said, it is firmly in the research phase, I believe. So that's kind of where they're at with it. If it's not a product they can bring to market, then maybe it's a good thing they're holding off. I know in the crypto world, we get a lot of announcements about announcements. And so until they get a viable product there, I think they might just be holding off. Will, saw your hand go up. Jump in.
Yeah, Lee Quinn, old CoinDesk reporter, and I think still contributor for us, did a really great profile on Jack Dorsey like a year ago now. And she brought up Blue Sky and talked with him about it. And it's, from my understanding at the time, I think this was like late 2019, Blue Sky was very much so in the R&D stage, and it's just like a lot of the crypto projects we talk about. Like, they're going to be in the R&D stage for quite a while. These things don't just come to market immediately. Even just look at the evolution of Twitter, which is a centralized platform. It used to be like a text-based platform, like back in the 2000s, and now it's just this behemoth. So I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, I want this Blue Sky platform now." Well, that's not going to happen. Like, it takes a while, and the fact that Jack is so into Bitcoin and so into decentralized applications, and even showed some hesitancy against banning Trump's profile on Twitter just because he didn't want to set a precedent for a social media platform engaging in those kind of actions, shows that I think they have the right person at the helm of the company, even if we don't see the actions that we want like right now today.
Yeah, we are seeing some of this stuff be experimented with in the crypto space. I don't know if any of you guys use like memo.cash, which is basically a Twitter-like platform. You write really short posts, you put out there. It's based on BCH. And so I use that. I put on my content out there. It's interesting because they have this model where you have to pay in order to put it on the blockchain. It actually doesn't really, I mean, you'd think that would be a huge inhibitor to people putting out content because they're not going to pay to trash talk someone like it's just, but actually they do pay to trash talk people, but it's super cheap. The fees are super cheap and all of that. But you see other iterations of this kind of decentralized experimentation in crypto. I wonder if he's going to be incorporating a crypto element to this now that he's all in on Bitcoin and interested in that stuff, or whether this is going to be using IPFS or like something completely different as the decentralized basis.
Yeah. There's just so few details out there about it. But one thing I do think is really interesting is, Naomi, all these different networks that you were mentioning, and there's a bunch out there. There's even Worker.io, which I was talking to somebody about recently, which is built on Doge, more or less. But, I think that getting back to the core of this, right, a lot of obstacles exist to getting people on these decentralized platforms. It's the UI, user experience and things like that are quite cumbersome. And so, sure, I think we all wish Twitter had an edit button, for example. There are parts of that UI that we don't love. That being said, I would imagine that, if Blue Sky comes along eventually, it would attract a lot of attention. It would be appealing to a lot of people. And hopefully it would be a little bit more accessible than some other platforms. But again, we could have this conversation for a long time. Is it really diversification and decentralization if some of the big players in the existing social media spaces just do decentralized clones? Like, I don't know if that's actually the competition people talk about or want in this space.
Yeah, I mean, I, for one, am against the edit button. I think the edit button would introduce all sorts of trouble. So some immutable record of what was said, I think, will be useful. All right, well, we're going to leave that our first block, and we're going to move to our second block. We're going to talk in our second block about whether corporates will follow Tesla's lead in putting Bitcoin in their treasuries. That's coming up next. Thanks. Hey, and welcome to The Hash. I'm Zach Seward. Here in this part of the show, I want to talk about Tesla again. They bought a ton of Bitcoin as a reserve asset. The idea, as espoused by Michael Saylor and the similarly publicly traded MicroStrategy, is that it's in a company's best interest to hold a hard asset like Bitcoin as the specter of inflation looms and as companies need to protect their wealth. So seemingly riffing on that playbook, Tesla has done the same thing. And I think the question now is, will others follow suit? So a JP Morgan analyst said No, others will not follow suit, and this is why. Bitcoin is far too volatile of an asset for corporate treasurers to deal with. I'm inclined to sort of agree with that argument. So I wanted to throw that out to the room, the table, and see if there was any takes on whether or not JP Morgan is totally off base here. Naomi, go for it.
Yeah, so I have mixed feelings about this. When Tesla announced, purely self-interested, I thought it was great news because Bitcoin skyrocketed, and it sort of gave credence to the idea that this was going to be a B2B settlement layer, that this was a store of value. This is becoming a global reserve currency. That's super exciting. At the same time, was it the correct decision for Tesla to do this? Because that means that they're essentially diversifying their interests. Now they're saying that Tesla stock is very correlated to the price of Bitcoin. Is that in the best interest of their shareholders? Now, I mean, when it comes down to it, he's basically saying that he believes that Bitcoin is a better store of value than the US dollar. And that means that he's expecting that there's going to be hyperinflation. He's expecting that there's going to be complete, global upheaval in terms of the economy, and the US dollar is going to become very volatile. That's what he's saying if he's saying that our money is going into Bitcoin instead of cash. I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm betting on Bitcoin because I also think that we are in store for some economic upheaval. That's why a lot of people are in Bitcoin as a hedge against that. But whether this is in the near term, whether this is likely, this is all a question. And I guess Tesla's made their decision, but will other S&P 500 companies follow? I'm not sure.
So if I'm like a CFO at like a major company and I'm seeing all these headlines, and my job with the cash reserves of this given company is to keep it pretty steady, right? Like these are bonds, these are money markets. This is nothing sexy. Upside is not part of the conversation. Why? I guess my question to you, Ben, would be and I'll pick on you, Ben, just because I heard you say something. But my question to you, Ben, is why would this change their view? Why would they be in a position to deal with potential upside and downside in making an investment such as this?
I mean, it wouldn't. That's the thing, right? I think we were talking about sort of the volatility here and even the brashness of Elon Musk on Twitter. It's he is a volatile guy. That is part of his whole brand. And so Tesla doing this shows we're in on this, but I think it fits with, their ethos as a company in some ways, which has at times been rushed, at times getting a little bit ahead of itself, even in terms of its product. But if you're a traditional, corporation, you want predictability. That's the biggest thing, right? You want to be able to say, okay, I have a good idea of where this is going to be. If you're working on a 10 or 20 year timeline, you're not looking for that upside. And, Bitcoin can certainly give you upside. It also has wild downswings, and that's going to make the day-to-day machinations of a larger corporate entity quite challenging. So that's kind of where I would come at it. And I think that's part of the reason more generally people might not be as excited to get into Bitcoin as some of us in the space might think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be super interesting to see. No, go for it, Naomi.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that, you did see an uptick in price. It wasn't a huge one, but it was an uptick in Tesla stock price. You saw an uptick in MicroStrategy. Are they publicly traded, MicroStrategy?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but they get lots of publicity. That's it's very good for their brand. And it's kind of remininiscent of this 2017 boom when you had places like Long Island iced tea become Long Island long blockchain core. And then there's, stock prices just go to the ceiling. Yeah, exactly. So I wonder whether people might be tempted to jump on this just because they want to see a boost in prices. And then if that may create a catalyst effect. But you're right. If they're not, if upside isn't part of the conversation, then maybe they're not going to be that tempted. I don't know. Jen, what are your thoughts on all of this?
I think what the story does is, again, it encourages people to learn more, and maybe on an individual level, start looking at Bitcoin and investing in it on an individual level. From a corporate standpoint, I tend to agree with Ben. I do think it's a little risky, and Elon is a risky person, and he's known as a first mover in this space, so he's going to do it, but I don't know if it's the best strategy for other companies to be following.
Well, what we're seeing today is, So what we're actually seeing is kind of take over itself in different forms. Twitter CFO Ned Siegel this morning went on the Squawk Box, and he talked about Twitter actually allocating some of its treasury reserve to Bitcoin as well, kind of following up with MicroStrategy, Tesla, and a bunch of other firms like Roofers or Mass Mutual. So I think I want to pitch this right back to Jen, even though she was just talking, because as co-founder of Streambed Media, you have an inside look into what the meshing of cryptocurrency and censorship-resistant platforms and media is. And what is Twitter but a media platform? If they have a large allocation in Bitcoin, then obviously they have a large interest in censorship resistance.
So what is your question?
Oh, I just want to see what you think about it. Like, what do you think about Twitter moving into the space? I should have ended that with an up note my voice, huh?
I mean, I think everything that Twitter is doing right now, moving into crypto and decentralized social media, is really exciting. What interests me the most about this is, and I know we haven't really talked about it on the show, and I just want to bring it up now because it keeps popping up into my head and we keep moving on from subject to subject, is that decentralized social media allows content that creators create to live on forever. And I keep thinking as we have these conversations that it provides an insurance policy to creators for their content. It gives them, it allows their content to live on even past the company. So if for some reason Twitter didn't exist tomorrow, their content would still be there. And that's just something that I know I'm kind of diverting from the subject a little bit, but I want to talk about that because no one's talking about it. And I think it's really important for people who are regular social media users to understand the things that we're talking about.
I think sometimes people misunderstand that. So go ahead, Will.
Yeah, I mean, where your money is where your mouth is, where money is, or whatever the saying is kind of like what I'm thinking of here is like Twitter is putting their money into Bitcoin, which is censorship resistant, right? And so if they have their foot in the door for that kind of future, then their platform necessarily needs to evolve towards that kind of future as well.
I mean, I think that this kind of goes back to the conversations about Blue Sky too, because, Twitter is, we think about it as a social media behemoth because, we spend a lot of time on it, but comparably, like it is losing out to Facebook in terms of the money it makes and the stock prices and everything else. And so, in that investor call, they were talking about Blue Sky as a way to position themselves and make themselves competitive in this environment. I thought that was really interesting because, I think the move with Bitcoin, and we see, Twitter's stock price trending up today, I think that makes sense just given, Jack Dorsey and his positioning. But, Twitter's got to find a way to keep itself viable and sustainable and also in the news in a lot of ways here. And, this could be another way to do that.
Like, lo and behold, who would have thought you kick off half your user base, people might stop using your product or might not trust it anymore. Like, it's like, are you guys idiots? Like, you saw Facebook start to shoot themselves in the foot doing that too. They're just like, we're just going to kick off everyone that uses it. Going to trash talk half the population in America. We're going to do this thing. It's like, how's that going to work out for you, Facebook? You can disagree with these people, sure, but how do you think this is going to play out? And
they're still making money over money though.
Yeah, but you look at last year, their stock prices, they just kept tanking, right? If Twitter is doing better, okay, it's getting to be a lower baseline they have to beat now. Honestly, I think that we can all predict that these platforms are going to do worse as they start to become more polarized and just platforms for talking into an echo chamber. People want conversations. People want people like Elon Musk, trash talking and saying, I disagree. They want that vibrancy. As soon as you start to tamper that down and create safe zones, I don't think that's why people come to these platforms.
I mean, rage engagements are still engagements, though. That's the thing. I joke hate clicks are still clicks. Sometimes the polarization can push towards that and create conflict. And those are metrics that, there's not a value to them other than the bottom line value. So maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, as it relates to just the treasury investment, the common denominator here is Jack Dorsey, right? He's already done this with Square. He is the co-CEO of Square, and they also put 50 million of their cash reserves into Bitcoin. I believe last fall. I might need to check my date on that one. Time flies. But, if Twitter were to, like, when I saw the headline this morning, I'm like, oh, this is the classic, like, pump headline. Like, oh, Twitter's about to invest. Great, cool. Like, maybe he said, oh, we're thinking about it. Or like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll take that under consideration. Right. And everyone's like, oh, shit, they're doing it. But, I think if it were to happen, I don't think it would be a huge surprise, just because Jack Dorsey has already done this with Square and even published a playbook for corporates on how to do this themselves. So if it were to shake out the way that Will was suggesting a little bit earlier, I wouldn't be shocked, but I'll kick you back to you, Ben.
Yeah, I think that's such a key point, right? Because one reason that people are talking about this now is reporters and talk shows are asking them about it. And so you're having all of these companies have to respond to this now with a maybe or a yay or a nay, and then that becomes a headline immediately. And we see that as, oh, well, maybe these companies are going to start getting into this. So I think we're in a bit of a response cycle here. So Naomi, I believe you want to take us into our next tease.
Absolutely. Let's take a short break. And coming up, we have a bunch of celebrities like Lindsay Lohan jumping on the Bitcoin bandwagon, and also the best court hearing of all time coming up next.
You are watching The Hash. I'm Jen Sanasi, and we are talking about the latest and greatest with crypto and culture. Now, a ton of celebrities have been pumping up Bitcoin and Dogecoin on social media. We've talked about a few of them already in the show. Snoop Dogg, Elon Musk, Gene Simmons have all endorsed Dogecoin, and now Mark Cuban is jumping on the bandwagon. Now, the Shark Tank star told Forbes, "I truly love it as the lowest cost economics teaching tool available that entertains at the same time." So I want to talk a little bit about that. We've been talking a lot about accessibility, and then I want to talk about Lindsay Lohan, who just came out of nowhere. But I want to hear what you guys think about Mark Cuban's tweet.
All right, so is this an economics lesson, right? He's basically saying this teaches people about supply and demand, and I don't think people quite ever think of money in that regard. They don't think of it as a price being not just like a fixed thing. It's actually determined by how much people want this asset or how much people don't want this asset and how much supply there is. So perhaps he's right that this is introducing people to that, but also, I mean, Dogecoin is like the worst coin to give people an economics lesson on. Maybe it's the best, I don't know, because like there's no supply cap, so you don't get that information about the supply, and yet Dogecoin is booming. So like I feel like it's a misrepresentation of what the lesson should be, which is fixed supply, if you have increased demand, is going to raise the price of something. So I'm not quite sure what Mark is thinking the lesson is right now.
Naomi, I 100% agree with you. And in that Forbes article that he shared, he's talking about it with his children. So he's like, yeah, I give my kids $10 and, let them watch it. So it's a fun way for them to learn about trading, if anything.
Learn about tulip bubbles.
Yeah, I think people like dogs.
People like the dog. Yeah, people like dogs. Yeah. People like dogs.
I like taking the devil's advocate position. I think it's a great way for people to learn. What way do you learn better in life than failure? And I think a lot of people are getting wrecked right now by Dogecoin. I have some friends.
My follow-up was going to be how much you have in Doge well.
Yeah, please buy my coin. No, I have a lot of friends who were like so excited during the first pump because now it's like basically gone back up again. I think it's hit 8 cents twice now. And I had friends just texting me like, "Oh my gosh, I have like $1,200 in Doge. I just bought like $50 a year ago for a joke." And then all the money goes away. And they're like, "Hey, that's their first investment lesson ever." And that's kind of a cool thing to get. I mean, unrealized losses are a bummer, but I think it's better to realize it now than when you're underwater on a mortgage. So that's my slight take on it.
And now from dogs to cats. Did you guys see the video?
I thought we were talking about Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, let's talk about Lindsay Lohan. There's not much to say about her. She just said that Bitcoin was going to the moon and she tweeted a rocket ship. The last I heard about Lindsay, she would have a failed reality show in Greece or something. So,
well, there was that brief cameo that she did on behalf of Ethereum, I think, and then now she's tweeting about Bitcoin. But hey, you mentioned the cat tease. Can we see the cat video that everyone was talking about?
I'm just so excited about the cat. I'm bulldoze
Can
Lindsay.
we see it? Can we play that?
Lindsay's not getting her fair share of time.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to
can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that.
Saddest looking cat.
I think if you click the up arrow next to the
Okay.
That is the saddest looking cat. Oh my God, it's so cute.
That's my favorite video of 2021.
Yeah, me too.
Things are looking up.
Love it.
Cool. That was an experiment in Zoom that went wrong, and maybe this too is an experiment in Zoom that went wrong, but at least we're getting a few chuckles out of it. All right, cool. Well, I think we're gonna leave it at that on a joking note, and stick with us on CoinDesk TV for more Zoom clips and also All About Bitcoin at 3 p.m. with Christine Lee, which is a good show. All right, bye everybody.
I'm not a cat, Judge.
I can see that.